Hi, I'm Dr. Bob Breakey from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm a lifestyle family physician here in Ann Arbor for these last 43 years. Start with a little history. I was born in Hawaii back in 1955. My dad was in the Navy. Only lived there for 2 years and then came back to Ann Arbor, did kindergarten through medical school here. And it was during medical school, as I was studying health and nutrition, that I said, I really need to learn all I can about healthy diet. We weren't really learning it in medical school, but in 1977, I read a book called Diet for a Small Planet by Francis Moore Lappé. It was also the 70s, Earth Day. We were getting into how to help manage our resources and save the earth for future generations. And it really resonated with me, the fact that we were feeding so much food to animals first, and much of the world was going hungry. Subsequently, I read a book by Peter Singer called Animal Liberation that kind of covered the abhorrent conditions on our modern day factory farms. I really didn't want to be a part of that, but I also knew that if I was going to go plant-based, I needed to also make sure it was going to be healthy for me. Again, we weren't learning nutrition in medical school, but I made it my mission to learn all I could about health, nutrition, exercise, and a lifestyle approach to staying healthy. And lo and behold, the more I learned, this was a triple win. Better for the earth, better for the animals, and way healthier for me to follow this kind of diet. So in March of 1977, I had my last red meat. It was a Burger King Whopper, downtown Ann Arbor here. In August, it was my last chicken at my brother's wedding. And then by December, I decided even to give up seafood. It was my birthday, and it just didn't taste right. It wasn't right feeling like I was eating any animals. Never looked back on that, and over the next several years, continued to read and learn. And then in 1985, a book by Dr. John Mcdougall called The Mcdougall Plan came out. And it really spoke to me more about also the importance of dairy and eggs in this same equation. Better for the animals, better for the planet, and better for me to avoid those. And that's when I became vegan.
Has your reason changed over the years? Has it evolved in any sort of way?
Being a physician, my primary motivation is to help my patients stay and remain healthy, to reverse disease where possible. In 2019, I became certified in lifestyle medicine, and the tenets of lifestyle medicine include use of this important lifestyle focus on healthy eating, on daily exercise, on managing stress, on avoiding risky substances, on social connectiveness, and on proper sleep to help foster health and vitality, and in many cases even prevent and reverse these most common chronic diseases I see every day in my office. Type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, many cancers, and many of the common conditions I see even in kids, eczema, asthma, acne, are commonly preventable and often reversible with a simple, straightforward lifestyle medicine approach. Healthy eating is really the cornerstone of that, because without the right fuel, without the proper nutrition, people just don't do very well. I see this every day in my office. People sitting right here in this chair in my exam room. I had a woman just today sitting here in tears because she was taking care of her brother who had had a major heart attack just 2 years earlier. He was younger than I am now. She was his older sister, but he was dying of pancreatic cancer. He was getting mini strokes. And knowing that all of this created not only that significant challenge for him in terms of pain, suffering, and what's going to be an early death, but also for her, taking care of him at a time when she was feeling depressed, anxious, and stressed about having to see him decline. And again, knowing that all of this is largely preventable through these lifestyle metrics. So I made it my mission then to begin to help people to see that they too can enjoy all that life has to offer. I have what I call my Dr. Bob's 8 keys for health that I give to all of my patients. Eating healthy, whole food, plant-based, drinking plenty of water, avoiding cow's milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, and dairy products, eating plenty of fiber, that is unprocessed plant-based foods, staying active of all kinds of exercise, watching one's environment, especially not smoking anything or risky substances. Great quality sleep is critical for people to be able to do repair work, both physically and mentally, and then taking time for play, relaxation, and social connectiveness. All of these measures add up to people sitting in this chair, coming in vibrant, healthy, thinking how they're going to enjoy time with their grandkids, or quite the opposite, just coming out of the hospital with handfuls of medications. So it inspires me every day to know that the sooner I can help people to see this reality, the more opportunity they have to enjoy a better life. I do this myself because for me, without my health, not much else matters. Again, I'm 68 now. I enjoy rollerblading and skiing, water sports, and scuba diving. I want to be able to do all that I want to do and continue to especially enjoy that with my kids and grandkids. Daughters are 31 and 35 now, and 2 grandkids, 1 year and 5 years. It's great to be able to know that I have the strength, the endurance, the vitality to still enjoy life while I have the opportunity now. And then to see that in my patients also, they literally come in thanking me. Let me tell you the story of Alice just in my office over here. My MA said, well, the lady and roommate just wants to say goodbye. She doesn't really need anything. And I said, why is she here? And she said, well, she just wants to say goodbye. And I said, well, let me figure this out. So again, and here's Alice. I've been taking care of her for over 35 years. She stands up and she smiles and she says, Dr. Breakey, I'm moving to Traverse City. I'm going to retire and be with my family, but I just want to thank you. And I said, what'd I do? She said, well, 35 years ago, you inspired me to go plant-based. And look at me. I'm normal weight, I'm healthy, I've got no medications, I have no medical needs, and I love gardening and being with my family and traveling. And I'm going to miss you, but you did this for me. You gave me a better life. Wow, Alice, you know, I'm glad I inspired you, but you did the hard work. You actually did this. It's not always easy to go plant-based or to live a healthy lifestyle in a world where people are hit with the opposite from marketing plans, from well-intended physicians or nutritionists who don't know better. And she did this. And this is, again, what inspires me every day to help people to attain what's possible in that manner. Now, a couple of principles I tell them, though. It's not all or nothing. The more you do, the more you gain. And it's never too late. And one guy, George, came in, and he's 84. He came in, he just smiling, he's, again, sitting right in this chair. He said, Doc, I feel great. I said, George, what's going on? He said, well, 6 months ago, I watched that Forks movie you told me about. Of course, Forks over nice. And he said, I want plant-based and all that digestive stuff I was having. My arthritis is better. His blood pressure dropped on medication from high to normal. His cholesterol dropped over 60 points. But most importantly, his vitality improved. He felt better than he had in years, and he was enjoying life more. So these kind of real-life stories inspire me to continue to help people to see that there's a better way. Yes, there's a place for medications. Modern medicine is great at fixing injuries or, in certain cases, helping people to get through acute illness. But with respect to chronic disease, we have an abysmal failure. Our health system now, the leading cause of death used to be tobacco in 1993, and now it's the American diet. We spend over 80% of our healthcare resources on diseases that are largely preventable and commonly reversible. But there's no emphasis on that in our healthcare system. We need to change the focus, and this is really what the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is all about. Let me show you a couple slides in that regard. So, as I was mentioning, the standard American diet is now the leading cause of death and disability, with dietary risk surpassing tobacco back in 2018. Chronic diseases are the result of that. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine aims to change all this. In 2019, it became board certified in lifestyle medicine, and this new discipline, this new board for providers of all types, is stressing that these 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine can really make a huge difference in people's quality of life and longevity. So it's not just length of life, it's health span as well. So when we think of the nutrition pillar for lifestyle medicine, I like to talk to people about 4 different categories of foods. Down here you've got processed animal foods like hot dogs, cheese, chicken McNuggets. Up here, at least it looks similar to the way nature brought us the animal foods. Down here you've got Captain Crunch, potato chips, olive oil, and a whole host of foods that, although they may be vegan, are not health supporting. And up here, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and beans. By keeping this in mind, we can start to see what makes a food health supporting. I think for most of the people watching here, we don't have to spend a lot of time on the lower half. These processed foods that are heavy in salt, fat, sugar, that are devoid of fiber, oftentimes added vitamins just to make them appear healthy, are not real food at all. They're processed stuff that the food industry purposely designs to get us addicted to, and they are not health supporting. So let's think about the top part. What about animal versus plant-based foods? And we think about the characteristics that make a food health supporting. It should be rich in antioxidants, because in the process of extracting energy from food, we form what are called free radicals. These nasty molecules go around and create DNA damage, chronic inflammation, can lead to cancer, atheromas, which leads to heart disease and strokes, and can set people up for diabetes. By having a diet rich in antioxidants, you put out that firestorm of inflammation that happens anytime you eat any food. Vegetables and fruits have an average of over 1,000 units of these antioxidants, and animal foods only 18. The animals have already used them up for their purposes, and you're left with virtually none. So plant food's way better in that regard. A second category is fiber. We way underestimate the importance of fiber in our diet. In fact, in medical school, they kind of said, this is the leftover. It's waste. It's nothing you need. It just passes through. We're not sure even why it's there. Well, we now know way different. This nourishes our microbiome. You're not just you. You're you and over 38 trillion microorganisms, mostly in the colon, who, if nourished properly, they quench inflammation, they support immune function, they produce nutrients, they produce short-chain fatty acids, which send a message to the brain that here's some great energy for you, and close the loop on satiety. The average American only gets 15 grams of fiber in their diet a day. The dietary guidelines suggest we should be getting 30, but even that is not near enough. Our ancestors ate over 100 grams of fiber a day, every day, and in so doing had healthy, vibrant microbiome that helped them to fight infection, to prevent cancer, to do all the things, necessary functions for the body to function at peak performance. So this is really our most common nutrient deficiency. Many people think, where do I get my protein? How am I going to get enough calcium? These nutrients are easy to get from whole plant foods, and what you can't get from animal and processed foods is the fiber. Only 3% of Americans sadly meet the 30 gram per day goal, and again, as we mentioned, even that's not near enough. Plant foods are where fiber comes from. That's the undigestible part of cell walls. So all animal foods have 0, and plant foods are prevalent. Whole plant foods, unprocessed plant foods, are a prevalent source of this vital nutrient fiber. The next is phytonutrients. And these are substances that come, phyto means plant, so only in plants. They're not optional. 30 to up to 100,000 of these nutrients, like lycopene in tomatoes, bioflavonoids in citrus, isoflavones in beans. These nutrients, again, help to decrease inflammation, help the body to do all the things it needs to do to maintain vitality. So once again, way better in the plant kingdom. The next is a balanced set of macronutrients. If you look at the blue zones, places where people are most healthy, they have about 80% complex carbs. Not sugar and white bread and donuts like most Americans eat, but lentils and broccoli and the complex carbohydrates that come in potatoes and brown rice. This is where most of your high quality energy should be coming from. They have about 10% protein and 10% healthy fats. The quality protein also makes a difference, because although animal foods range from 30 to 70% fat or protein and almost no carbs, milk's the only exception with its sugar and lactose, but these macronutrients are healthier from the plant kingdom. Let's look at protein in particular. The protein from plants is more alkaline, especially fruits, vegetables, and beans. And the protein from animals has the 2 sulfur-containing amino acids in higher proportions, metabolizing to sulfuric acid and putting a big strain on the kidneys and, in fact, the entire system. So better quality protein, more alkaline, less allergenic. The two leading causes of food allergy by far are dairy and eggs. They're more balanced. They're less inflammatory. So protein amounts are prevalent in a whole food plant-based diet, and the quality is actually better. Same with fats. If you look at the animal foods, they're high in cholesterol, saturated fats, which we know increase the risk of heart disease, vascular disease, high blood pressure, and strokes. Whereas the plant-based fats are much better in terms of unsaturated and monounsaturated fats. Spend a second, though, again, unprocessed. When it occurs in the corn, corn oil is a healthy part of a whole food. When you extract it out and make corn oil, you've got empty calories with huge calorie density that is not health supporting. So oils of all types are processed, and much better to eat it along with the food, both for calorie density purposes and, well, think of it like sugar. If you're eating a beet, you're getting the sugar in that beet, but also the protein, the fiber, the phytonutrients that come with it. If you extract out the sucrose, you got a bag of sugar, it's just empty calories. Same thing here. If you've got an olive, it's got protein, fiber, micronutrients. If you extract out the olive oil, you've just got the empty calories. So contrary to popular opinion, these oils are healthier than the butter and animal-based versions, but they're not health supporting. Much better to eat whole foods. So we're seeing a pattern here. We're rich in antioxidants, high in fiber, balanced macronutrients, rich in phytonutrients, alkalinizing instead of acidic. This type of approach to eating really does help to support better human health. And no surprise here, this is what our ancestors evolved on. This is in fact what most of the world eats before they get industrialized and move in a lot of animals to their farming practices. Whole grains, beans, legumes, fruits, and vegetables form the basis of most natural diets, and the reason that these blue zones that are people live long and healthy lives there. So to help bring this home to an easy to understand way of looking at it, let me share the American College of Lifestyle Medicine whole food plant-based food plate. Have fruits and vegetables, antioxidant rich, high fiber, foods that are rich in vitamins and minerals. A quarter of the plate then is plant proteins, that is legumes, nuts and seeds, and down here your whole grains, brown rice, oats, quinoa, whole grain, breads and cereals. Together these then make up your whole plant-based diet, which helps to improve health outcomes all throughout pregnancy, childhood, geriatrics, and regardless of disease. This should be the cornerstone of people's diets. The tip sheet here from ACLM also talks about making a transition. It's best for most people to go a little gradual if they're on the standard American diet, to work their way into this so that their digestive system adapts to it and they don't feel like couldn't stick with that, it gave me gas. Transitionally, people can get there easier by going transitional. Some people, though, because of either a health condition or a desire to go all in, can do it that way, and that works for some as well. Let me go next into the chicken myth. A lot of people think that chicken is healthy. As you can see from this slide, chickens have changed a lot since I was born. They used to be scrawny little things with just a few grams of fat per chicken breast, and now they're over 4 times the size. They get them to market in half the time. They can't even stand by the time they're ready for slaughter. And over 20 grams of fat in an average serving. There's really no difference between chicken and red meat with respect to health. Chicken has more protein, so it's even harder on the kidneys, but also because of the high saturated fat and cholesterol content, contributes to vascular disease, heart attacks, and stroke as well. So this common myth that I'm eating chicken breast and it's good for me is just wrong. Chicken already has more than half the calories from fat in most servings, even if it's baked and skinless, and the protein in there is of poor quality with respect to health promotion. So one of the most common questions I get when I help people see that chicken, fish, eggs are not healthy for them is, well, okay, how am I going to do that? They may go home and watch the documentaries I recommend, Forks Over Knives, Game Changers, What the Health, and multiple other resources I give them on my 8 Keys page. And then they come back and say, family doesn't eat this way, I'm not used to it, I don't know how to do this. And that, I think, is a critical point. We have to give people not only the why, but the how. Now, fortunately, compared to when I started, and there was nothing out there in 1977, there is a huge set of resources for vegan cooking classes, for plant-based information sessions, for cookbooks. You can go online and watch YouTube videos for how to cook without oil, for how to get away from chicken, for how to replace some of these things. First steps is to have people start to think, well, what could I do that I already like and know, but in a plant-friendly way? For example, if you're using chicken in your stir fry, just replace it with tempeh or tofu. If you've got a white bean chili that you're used to making and you use chicken in there, use mushrooms instead, or again, some tempeh. You can replace things so that it becomes what you've always done, but just in a different way that's healthier for yourself, for the animals, and for the planet. So lots of resources. ForksOverKnives.com is great with recipes. PBNSG, that's Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group.org, has cooking classes, demonstrations, info sessions, a cookbook, support groups. So this got the why, what about the how, is a critical question, because I help people see this. The light bulb goes off, and then they go out into the real world where there are well-intended family members who say, you're going to die of B12 deficiency or protein malnutrition, you're going to hurt yourself, you don't know what you're doing, your doctor is crazy, all kind of things they hear out there. And then they see on TV, they read the dietary guidelines. They find that there's a lot of conflicting information out there. And this is by design from the food companies that are trying to keep us addicted to these foods. What they do is create confusion. They put forth so-called experts who are paid well to say things that are of nebulous truth. They sponsor studies that are poorly designed but purport to show, for example, that saturated fat doesn't matter, cholesterol is back. Put it on the cover of Time magazine. As Dr. Mcdougall says, people love to read that what they love to eat is good for them. So you get all this conflicting information out there. And people often come back a month or two later going, well, I thought I had it figured out, but I don't know anymore. And they just throw up their arms and keep doing what they're doing. They go to what's comfortable or what their family's doing so they don't have to be different. Once again, it's a matter of committing to an understanding that this really is best. And when you look at the science, there is no question about it. A whole food plant-based diet, and that's why the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is the evidence-based arm of the medical approach to healthy living, says that this is the diet. There's very little controversy among unbiased experts about what's the best way to eat and nourish ourselves. Once you get that, then the stronger your why, the easier your how. You will then find ways to cook new things, to relate with people, to find restaurants where they serve the kind of food that you love and loves you back. All of this will come in time, but all I can say is stick with it. It's not easy at first. You'll have well-intended people trying to talk you out of it, and it's all worth it. Again, when I look forward to my next 40 years of life, vitality, of eventually retiring, I want to know that it's going to be fun and going to be able to do what I want to do, as opposed to what I see in so many of my patients who are younger than me and are already walking with a walker or dealing with handfuls of medications. It makes a huge difference, and in recognizing that, you're better able to get through that common barrier to be able to say, I'm going to find a way to do this. You can do it.
What's some of the most compelling evidence that you've come across?
So I mentioned an evidence-based approach to decision-making, and whether it's clinical decisions or nutritional advice, we want to make sure that there is real science behind what we as physicians we as well-intended lay people are putting out there for people. The evidence is clear, as I mentioned, and several studies, including the Evidence Health Study, where they looked at Seventh-day Adventists who have a spectrum from omnivores all the way to vegan, and you see a stepwise improvement from pescatarians to lacto-ovo-vegetarians to semi-vegans to vegans, with improvement in risk for diabetes, their weight, and their blood pressures. Across the spectrum in these long-term prospective studies, you find that this is what we see, is that these foods really do best support health. Probably one of the best resources, though, I turn people on to are three documentaries I mentioned. Forks Over Knives, The Game Changers, and this is a James Cameron documentary. He did Titanic and Avatar, so it's like Forks Over Knives on a Hollywood budget, filled with the science of how whole food plant-based eating helps to improve everything functioning in your body, and how the best athletes are turning to this to gain that edge and improve performance. And then the third is What the Health, and what this one does is really explore why this isn't more widely known. Because another thing one of my patients asked me is, well, if this is true, why am I not hearing this from my other doctors, from the media, from my nutritionist? Again, there are forces out there that want us to stay and continue to eat these high-priced foods that they produce. I hesitate to even call them foods. They're food-like substances that they keep us addicted to. So they create confusion, and What the Health helps to put forth why that is and why you can make a difference for yourself and your own family by recognizing that. So the evidence is critical. If someone says ABC, ask them where did they find that and how do they know? When they ask you that same question, one of the other great resources is Dr. Michael Greger's book, How Not to Die. I actually recommend this to all of my patients, and you can get it on Amazon. I don't make any money on this, but you can get it on Audible and listen to him read it himself. See, they have that added dimension. Over 2,000 references, so you can look up the original studies. Importantly, too, nothing to sell. He's got no hidden agenda here. His website, nutritionfacts.org, has over 2,000 videos with the evidence behind almost any condition you'd want to look up. And again, you notice no banner ads, no hidden agenda for something he's trying to promote. And in that way, you can know that you're getting a true picture of what's real instead of what somebody's trying to sell you. Multiple other resources, but the documentaries at nutritionfacts.org, several other books and websites, Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I get a lot of resources from there. Share their booklet, The Power Plate, with my patients or for kids. Nutrition for Kids. This little booklet is awesome for people looking to nourish their kids from before birth, really, with a whole food plant-based lifestyle. So tons of resources, as I mentioned, compared to when I started this. You've got a lot out there, not only the internet, but printed material, documentaries, podcasts, and support groups that are there for people to help make this transition.
How do people make sense of all this confusion? Like, how do they really know they can trust you over some carnivore doctor?
Of course, there are many other supposedly healthy diets out there. The Atkins diet started back in the 60s, 70s, and has been reincarnated with paleo, keto, and other various forms of the low-carb diet. Now, in the short run, if you deprive the body of its natural energy source, carbohydrates, it goes into ketosis. This is what we call a make-yourself-sick diet. Appetite drops, people lose weight. Weight loss shouldn't be the sole measure of whether a diet is healthy for you. I like to tell people there's a lot of good about the keto diet. First of all, it eliminates sugar, most dairy products. It eliminates a lot of processed foods. The problem with it is it deprives the body of those natural carbs, which are our best energy source, and instead increases the amount of fat, especially in most cases heavy saturated fat, that increases the risk of heart disease. With respect to the evidence for this, there are no long-term studies on paleo or keto diet showing better outcomes. There are no long-term cultures like there are with the plant-based diet in the blue zones that have thrived on a low-carb diet like this. It's a short-term try to get to an outcome metric of weight loss approach. It can also, in the short term, improve diabetic numbers, but not the underlying insulin resistance. It's the root cause of that. So people get confused. They think, wow, my friend lost 30 pounds on a keto diet. He seems to have reversed his diabetes. This must be good. It is not. There is no evidence that over the long run, these diets will help promote health or get people to where they want to be with respect to disease reversal and health promotion. Again, a lot is out there. All I can say is search for the true evidence, not with somebody that's trying to sell you something. Dr. Greger has some great videos on this as well. His book covers it a lot. Go for whole food, plant-based eating. A quick word about gluten too. Gluten-free is the new kind of healthy. It does turn out that about between 1/2 and 1% of people have celiac disease, which is genetic. About another 1% of people have gluten intolerance and they don't do well with gluten. But for 98% of people, gluten is good. It's a healthy plant-based protein that comes from wheat, rye, and barley. So the idea that gluten is bad for everybody is common misconception based on that it is not good for a small subset of people. So yes, don't go for the fad diet of the day. Go for what American College of Lifestyle Medicine, Blue Zones demonstrate, and thousands of studies demonstrate now is the best approach to supporting human health. A lot of people ask me about fish because they've heard guidelines saying that we should eat fatty fish, especially to get the healthy omega-3 fatty acids. This is not, at best, unnecessary. What we're seeing here is fish is less worse than red meat. Because the omega-3 fatty acids are preferable to the saturated fats and cholesterol that come in red meat and chicken, if you do studies with a replacement for chicken, replace it with fish, these people do better. That doesn't mean that fish is optimal. That just means that fish is better than chicken and red meat. If you compare people on a fish or pescatarian diet with those on a whole food plant-based diet, you see that these folks do better. Fish has several downsides. We've already talked about what makes a whole food health supporting. 1, no fiber. Number 2, it has about as much cholesterol per 100 calories as red meat. It's lower calorie density, but it still contains cholesterol. Number 3, no phytonutrients. Number 4, and this is critical, we have so thoroughly polluted our lakes and oceans that fish is a common source of environmental contaminants. That is PCBs, mercury, heavy metals, and others that come along with it. You can feed people fish, equivalent of a can of tuna per day, and watch their mercury levels go up over a period of 2 weeks. Does this sound like healthy? No, we need to begin to help people see that the basis of fish, even if it were contaminant-free, is not good. And then on top of that, the fish are inevitably contaminated. Another reason this comes out is that we do need healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Fish don't make those though. They get it from the algae. The DHA and EPA comes from the algae that they eat. 2 things. Eating ground flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, or walnuts are good sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And most people have no trouble converting those short chain to the long chain omega-3s, making them a much better source than fish oil or eating fish. If there's any doubt about whether you may be able to convert those, you can just take a pollutant-free algae source of DHA, EPA in a supplement form. While we're on that, I'd say that's one that's sort of 50-50. You may want to do it if you want to do it. But one that is critical is vitamin B12. Our ancestors used to get B12 from not washing their food. It comes from bacteria in the dirt. Now that we clean our food, we don't have the B12 forming bacteria in our intestines, and we need to take a reliable source of B12. Not just people who are plant-based, anybody over 50 can have a harder time absorbing it. So 500 micrograms a day of a reliable source of vitamin B12 is critical. For those of us in Michigan in the Northern Hemisphere, you should also want to think about vitamin D. It's not really a vitamin at all. It's formed by exposure to the sun, but since many of us have so many cloudy and cold days, a reliable source of vitamin D2 is also a good idea. After that, leave the supplements alone. You want a reliable source of food-based iodine from some type of either seaweed, dulse, or seaweed daily, but all these hundreds of multivitamins and nutrients in pill form that people come in with. I say, I'm going to save you some money. And most of them are happy about it. Now, some have been convinced they need these, but in general, just stick with a couple of supplements. Skip the fish oil for sure, and you'll be healthier for the long run.
Now, some people claim to have high levels of B12, like when they have their serum levels
Yeah, they're checked, yeah.
And is that ever an issue?
You know, there's some controversy. You won't get in trouble with 500. It's water soluble, the extra goes out. They do a blood test and they have what's called a high reference range level, and we just tell them to back off on the supplement. But you won't get in trouble with that. Okay. So I don't know, I don't want to get too much nuance unless you think that's a common thing people...
It somewhat is, because I've heard it in the comments and Dale on it, talking about his levels were high, and it made people wonder if they should even be taking B12. And then I had somebody tell me that they don't even take B12. This lady's 75 years old. She's been vegan 50 years raw. She ferments a lot of her foods.
That's right.
So maybe she's getting it there.
That's right. Yeah, from the bacteria and the
But
fermentation
we probably don't
process.
want to tell people to do that, I guess.
Yeah, we got to be careful that people think they're getting it and then they end up with neurologic. The upside's big and the downside from taking it is minimal.
So is there anything else you'd like to show us on your slideshow over there?
You know, I guess a good summary is to think about how any organism, living organism, does better with the right environment. If we can think of a tree, and for example, on the left side, this tree has soil that's moist with bountiful nutrients and is not compacted. On the left side, this tree is compacted with lack of nutrients. It may not be getting as much water. And you see how much more rich and vibrant the tree grows on this side versus the one that's living in an adverse environment. So if we think of this in terms of humans, over on the left side there, people following a whole food, plant-based lifestyle with daily exercise, managing their stresses and finding social connectedness, develop an internal environment that's rich in antioxidants. They have a healthy microbiome they're carrying with them. Their diet's rich in phytonutrients, alkalinizing, and the balanced macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbs, lead to a strong blood flow throughout the body, low levels of systemic inflammation, healthy organs, and then vitality, positive wellness, independence, and freedom. This is what we all want for ourselves, to be on this left side. In contrast, most people living in times of chronic stress, with a sedentary lifestyle and isolation, they have large amounts of processed and animal foods, which create oxidative stress, a microbiome that's way out of balance and creates inflammation. They have insulin resistance or prediabetes, or over 25 million people now, actual diabetes. This leads to ischemia, which is low blood flow to the tissues, chronic inflammation throughout the body, setting them up for insulin resistance, organ dysfunction, lack of blood flow to the heart and brain, depression, chronic pain, diabetes, coronary artery disease, and fatigue. So you see that the thing here, we're all looking for being this left side, upper left side, and the roots are way down low, where how you live your life in this section down here is what helps determine that. Instead, most people living over here, oftentimes confused about what's right, end up with this and then find, why did this happen to me? Why did I get Crohn's disease, breast cancer, diabetes, heart attack? And the answer is right here before them all along. My goal, my hope is that we can spread health by helping improve knowledge about what's real, helping people cut through the misinformation that they're given every day by industries trying to sell them things, by uninformed, oftentimes professionals who think they're doing the right thing, but just haven't learned, haven't caught up with the science of how healthy, whole food, plant-based eating and other metrics important in lifestyle medicine can help to show people a better way to live their life, to improve vitality, prevent, and in many cases even reverse chronic disease. So that's my mission.
Great mission. So your tree analogy, it shows a healthy, vibrant tree on the left side, but sometimes people look healthy and vibrant while inside they're not so much, and they don't realize it until it's too late, right?
Another common people think is that, hey, this doesn't apply to me, I'm healthy. My blood pressure is good, I got my cholesterol checked, it's only 210, I have ability to keep up with what I want to do, I'm fine. Well, I have one of my patients, 56-year-old, felt just this way. He was active, his 4 kids, and then one day he started feeling some vague chest discomfort, started feeling a sense that something wasn't right when he'd walk up a hill or try to go bicycling. He didn't say much at first, but it continued to progress. He's a healthcare consultant. He was talking with one of his colleagues one day, and they said, "You better get this checked." Well, he ended up in the emergency room. He had an 85% blockage of his left anterior descending coronary artery. He had no idea it was there. This is the widowmaker artery, and he was sitting on a time bomb there because years of better than average American diet had led to blockage of that artery slowly and surely. So commonly, the first symptom of heart disease is a person's last. Let's say half the people, their first is a fatal heart attack. So don't wait until you get symptoms. Don't wait until you start pooping blood and getting abdominal pain to think about whether you want to be at risk for colon cancer. If you wait till the symptoms are that obvious, it's already too late. Yes, people commonly think, I'm doing fine. Their doctor may have even given them a clean bill of health. I remember telling this patient his blood sugar was a little borderline, 102, prediabetes, cholesterol 215, better make some changes. Oh, it sounds pretty good compared to a lot of my friends. These are the things. He was about 20 pounds overweight. Okay, actually good by American standards, but not enough to prevent the kind of underlying seething health problems that then come to surface in a way that says, uh-oh, too late. So yes, people commonly think they're fine until they're not, and then they learn the hard way that they wish they had made some changes earlier.
Yeah, and I imagine that some people, when they realize that they have a disease, they think it's just normal to get a disease. Is that true?
Another question I get is, well, isn't this just a normal part of aging? I mean, heart disease is in my family. It's genetic. Everybody has diabetes in my family. I knew I was going to get it, so why are you saying that it would be anything different? It's not anything I can do about it. What we say is genetics loads the gun and diet pulls the trigger. When we find that a person has a risk, all the more important, because yes, genes do play a role, but not near as much as people tend to think, not near as much as the pharmaceutical or food industries would like us to believe. To them, they'd like you just to think that, oh, sorry, nothing you can do about this, medicines to the rescue, or keep eating the way you do, it's just going to happen either way. Nothing could be further from the truth. That genetics is only a small piece. Aging, sure, is a risk factor, but as you age, you can age with grace and vitality by nourishing yourself, by being that tree with great food, exercise, stress management, and sleep habits that helps you to be vital at any age.
Do you think this is the most protective diet of all?
A lot of people wonder whether there's anything even better than this, and it's really a continuum. The standard American diet is only about 11% whole food plant-based, that is beans, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains make up only about 11% of the calories. That's the average. That means half the people do worse than that. The U.S. dietary guidelines tell us to eat more fruits and vegetables, cut back on saturated fat, getting people about halfway. The Mediterranean diet is better than that. Less red meat, still with fish and olive oil, some dairy products, but even better than that is Pritikin. Still includes some chicken, maybe no-fat dairy products, but not much sugar, salt. It's better than that. The whole food plant-based diet goes on beyond that and says, let's have unprocessed foods, low in fat, salt, and sugar from the way nature presented them. And so, yes, it's a continuum. And it's not all or nothing. The more you do, the more you gain. And it's not 100% either. You could be eating over here on the worst side and live to 100 without disease. It's rare, but it can happen. Or you can be eating near perfectly and still, through some genetic or bad luck or other. But the odds are way in the favor of the people eating on this side. So if you want to roll the dice that say, hey, I want to have my lowest risk of these chronic diseases, the whole food plant-based is the best. Again, there are variations within that, and all I can say is the main thing there is to be all in for plant-based. There's no need for any animal foods in the diet. And secondly, less processed is better. We can think of this with the soybean. Edamame or soybeans are the bean itself. Those are the least processed. Tempeh, you can still see the bean, it's fermented, it's minimally processed, still very healthy. Tofu is the next step. Some of the fiber is removed, you no longer see the beans, it's processed. Because you started out so healthy, it's still a very healthy food, filled with isoflavones and healthy proteins, great nutrition, but it's more processed. And then finally, soy milk. Not much fiber, still healthy proteins, isoflavones. And you see the continuum here. All still good foods, but as you go down the way, less so. So if someone says, is there anything better than whole food plant-based? It's, well, the more whole food you are, and you can do this with grains and breads and others as well, the better. But don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You can still eat breads, especially if they're whole grain. I like the Ezekiel sprouted grain breads. Still eat tofu even though it's processed. But the closer to the way you produced it, the better. One thing is that you do want to do with your flaxseed, though, is to grind them. If you eat whole flax or chia seeds, they just pass right through you. By grinding them, minimal processing, you're not removing or adding anything, but you're making them more bioavailable. And that's an example of where certain foods may have minimal processing, may be better.
Do you think it's most advantageous to raise children on a whole food plant-based diet?
So the American Dietetic Association advises that a healthy whole food plant-based diet can be good for people of all ages. It has to be carefully planned, but whether it's during pregnancy, infancy, where breast milk is best, childhood, adolescence, mid-adulthood, or geriatrics, yes, a plant-based diet is best for everybody. Now again, there are nuances between that. If someone's celiac, they shouldn't be eating gluten. If someone has a food allergy to tomatoes, they shouldn't be eating tomatoes. So not the same as across the board, but with respect to food for kids in particular, you want to start them out right. They did a study on 10-year-olds who had died of various causes, and 100% of them already had early signs of coronary artery disease, the fatty streaks. It's even worse than that. They did studies on kids from a miscarriage, fetuses, before they were born. Many of them already had coronary artery disease correlated with the mom's LDL bad cholesterol level. So these diseases, even though they may not manifest till 40s, 50s, 60s, start in childhood. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, we used to call adult onset. Now as young as 8-year-olds, because of childhood obesity, are getting this. We're seeing the guidelines for colon cancer go lower because these diseases that start 20, 30 years earlier are manifesting earlier. So yes, absolutely, for your kids, a whole food plant-based diet is the best way to not only nourish their growing bodies from an early age, but teach them the habits and patterns that make them used to doing this throughout their life. So often people start their kids out on juice, and then they wonder when they're teenagers why they can't get them to stop drinking pop. They won't drink water. Well, they got used to from infancy drinking something with sugar in it. And now water is bland. It doesn't give them the dopamine rush. Don't fall into that trap of teaching your kids that fat, salt, and sugar is what tastes good and makes it good for you, but rather how do you get natural whole sweetness and flavors from foods to be what tastes good. And then they'll enjoy better health, less asthma, eczema, childhood arthritis conditions, obesity, diabetes. All of these can be improved by eliminating meat, dairy, eggs, and processed foods from the kids' diets, while at the same time allowing them to develop lifelong habits that will carry them healthy into their adult years.
What kind of foods do you enjoy eating on a daily basis?
Start the day with steel-cut oats. It's quick cooking because I can put them into a bowl with some goji berries. Those are high antioxidant red berries that are kind of like dried raisins. And you get them online or at the Chinese grocery store. Put them in some water and pop them in the mic while I take my shower. They steam and cook for a few minutes, and then when they come out, I add my combination of ground flaxseed, ground chia seed, turmeric, cinnamon, and pumpkin pie spice, a little bit of matcha, and mix that all in my bowl. Add whatever berries I have, and then a splash of plant-based milk. boy, when you add the blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, it's like dessert for breakfast. This is what I have almost every breakfast. On the weekends, commonly we'll make Ezekiel toast, avocado toast, sometimes green smoothies with kale, collards from the garden, carrots and cucumbers. Put a lot of vegetables in your smoothie with fruit more for flavoring. Some flaxseed in there to be ground up. For lunch is commonly the leftovers from the night before, so let me skip to dinner and then we'll come back to that. For dinner, if my wife's working late, I'll go home and pull out my bowl. It's literally about 14 inches by 3 inches deep. Throw in arugula and spinach and romaine and various kinds of lettuce. Put a sweet potato in the microwave, open some chickpeas and put those on the side. Get some basil and kale from the garden, slice up some carrots and peppers, cucumbers, and then top it off with balsamic vinegar. I like different flavors, the 18-year balsamic, ginger, blackberry balsamic. You can go to the olive oil store and just skip the oil side, just get the flavored vinegars, put it right on your salad. You can also use hummus with apple cider vinegar and some spices or garlic to make a good dressing. That's one of my most common dinners. I'll make a side salad to have the next day. And then we like batch cooking, lentil soups, minestrone, chilies. You can make all these without the processed and animal foods that commonly go in them. The other thing we do is to think ethnic foods. Get some pasta made from lentils or chickpeas and make a marinara sauce with lots of vegetables in there. Go wild, think outside the box. Put some sprouts or some chickpeas, some pineapples or some kidney beans right in your marinara sauce. We use stir fry. You don't need oil to stir fry, just keep it moving. Put a little vegetable broth in there or white wine, and you serve that on brown rice or quinoa. Buddha bowls, I'll make a Mexican one with avocado and salsa, some jalapeno peppers if you like it spicy. It's more for my wife. And a side of lettuce and tomatoes. Thai foods or Japanese sushi, just using black or brown rice and leaving out the fish and seafood. Think Ethiopian foods or Indian foods. The flavors and the delight that comes from that is both healthy and rewarding. So yes, we love to eat. I eat lots. I enjoy all the flavors. The flavors really come from the plant kingdom. And when you think about it, if people are going to grill meat, they spice it up. They put barbecue sauce. They do something to, in a sense, disguise the fact that it's just a piece of animal flesh. It becomes a vehicle that's calorie dense and therefore gives people a rush, but it's not essential and it's not anything that you can't get from the flavors that you flavor it with in plant-based form. So yes, I love to eat. We love having a variety of ethnic foods. We love going out to restaurants. You just have to tell them what you want and go to ones that cater to what you want. And you'll find that your life of plant-based eating is even more rewarding, more satisfying, more fun and tasty than what you used to eat as people would get in a rut.
What do you think about like sopanins and lectins and phytates and things like that? Sometimes in the comment sections people say, "Oh, plants are toxic." Any words on that you can share to those people?
Yeah. So commonly you'll get people trying to sell you something claiming that some component of a whole plant food is not good for you. There's a kernel or a grain of truth in that. For example, a common one is Dr. Gundry's work with the plant paradox. Oh, plants are healthy, but they contain these toxins called lectins. Ricin is one of them, one of the most toxic things known to mankind. The reality is that these substances are quickly destroyed by cooking. Nobody eats raw lentils or raw kidney beans. The amounts in other foods are so small that they are negligible and don't make a difference. So what you see here actually is a marketing plan. He has sold a lot of books and importantly too, a lot of lectin blockers. If you look at his website, you'll see a supplement that's your basic one. I don't know, $70 or $80 a month. You too can eat plants and not worry about it by taking our lectin blockers. If you get his whole line of 10 of them, maybe be spending $900 a month. Well, he's raking in the money from a non-issue, from something that is not real nutritional science. Great testimonials, great good-looking studies he quotes, but this is a small example of people claiming that things like phytates in beans, lectins, or other subcomponents of plant foods are somehow not healthy for you. Remember the musical, the Music Man? Harold Hill comes into town and he creates a problem. We've got pool, we've got trouble in River City, but I've got the solution, a boys band. Well, this is the Music Man story all over. You create a problem by saying that this or that component of this food, and I've got the solution for you. Buy my book, take my seminars, take my lectin blockers, and you too will be able to enjoy and not get pulled down by this. Don't buy it. Eat whole plant, enjoy all that they have to offer, and stay away from the fad salespeople that are trying to pull you into something that's not real.
Now, can't sprouting food also get rid of some of those?
So another thing I do is sprout my seeds and beans. You just get a mason jar with a screen on top. It's real easy. Soak them for 6 to 12 hours, depending on what kind of seeds you're sprouting. Dump out the water, turn them upside down, rinse twice a day, and in 3 to 5 days, you've got healthy, vibrant foods that are alive. What may have been previous toxins that would have needed to be cooked now get converted into phytonutrients and enzymes and supporting vitamins that are there for you in the sprouting form. So yes, that I put onto my salad too. Broccoli sprouts are especially good for anti-inflammatory and cancer-fighting properties. You can get sunflower sprouts, all types of sprouts from beans and seeds can also be very healthy.
And how much of your diet is raw? Or do you recommend people consider embracing raw?
Is raw food better than cooked food? Well, there are some pros and cons to each. Personally, I have about half and half. I always have, as I mentioned on my oatmeal, some ground flaxseed and berries that are raw with the cooked oatmeal. And at lunch, I always have a salad along with what might be leftover soups, stews, or main course. And at dinner time too, commonly a balance there. I find it adds a flavor, variation in texture and temperature that both taste good and provide some of the best of both worlds. Raw foods provide probiotics, that is healthy bacteria that come to seed your microbiome, and have live enzymes that can actually help in the digestive process. Cooked foods in many cases are more bioavailable and allow you to not have to eat as large of volumes. Eat a balance of both. Now if someone says, I only want raw foods, that's okay. People can do fine on a well-planned raw food diet. Personally, I have about half and half, and that's what a lot of people find is a good balance for them.
What about fasting? Do you get into that at all?
So fasting is also another thing that many people are finding has great benefits for them. The most common was called intermittent fasting, and that is not eating for a certain period of the day every day. In fact, we all do that to a certain extent. And the idea is if you go to bed at 10 and get up at 6, you're not eating during that time. Well, hopefully you're not getting up and snacking. But to extend that and say, hey, I'm not going to eat after 7 p.m., and I'm going to wake up a little and not eat till 7 a.m. so that it's 12 hours where your body has a chance to assimilate everything you've eaten from the last meal and get a chance to reboot. There may be many benefits for that, especially for folks trying to lose weight. The other one that's going around is a more prolonged fast. If you're going to do more than a couple days, you should be medically supervised and make sure that you know why you're doing it. As a human species, there were times when food wasn't available, so our bodies are able to tolerate either intermittent fasting or short times of fast. But again, you don't want to get yourself in trouble by trying to do something yourself that should be medically supervised. So yes, intermittent fasting may have many benefits, especially if you're trying to lose weight or reverse diabetes. At the same time, be a little careful if you try to go prolonged.
Now, for clarification, isn't it more like 16 hours to really kind of get into the intermittent fasting range?
Intermittent fasting is a continuum. There's no just one number that's optimal. And again, it depends on where you're at, what your goals are. The most important is whole food, plant-based, and eat the right things regardless of when you eat them. A fine-tuning part is to make sure it's as much whole food as you can, and especially if you're trying to lose weight, to have intermittent fasting be a part of that. Whether that's 10 hours, 12 hours, or 16 hours may depend on your goals. Better for people who are trying to lose weight, stopping at 3 p.m. and not eating until 7 a.m. may be even better. Some people find that they only eat during 4 hours and have a 20-hour intermittent fast, and maybe what's optimal for them. So yes, choose a period between 4 and 12 hours. Again, the experts can't always agree on what's, and I think the reason for that is that it's a bit individualized, depending on where you're starting from, if you're trying to lose weight or not, what diseases you have. Pick a number that works for you and is matched with your goals. Try it. It can be very healthy.
And then it sounds like maybe you're suggesting getting the bulk of your calories earlier in the day. Is that correct?
Yes, another thing that people should strive for, especially if they're trying to lose weight, is to eat more calories earlier in the day. It can make a difference for whether they are used and metabolized during the day or whether they're stored. So they say eat more of your calories breakfast, lunch, and then smaller dinner. Many people end up doing the opposite.
Do you have a favorite quote you want to share?
A man with his health has 1,000 dreams. A man without his health has but one. And I think what this illustrates is that without your health, not much else matters. I see this every day in my office here. People sitting right in this chair who've lost something more priceless than winning the lottery or having true love. They've lost their health. And the good news coming out of all of this is that it's largely a matter of choices you make every day about whether that happens. And sometimes what's lost can be regained. Lifestyle medicine, whole food, plant-based eating, do your best to gain what is that priceless asset that most of us are born with called health, and maintain it through your life, because that's what matters most.
And is there any way people can access you for more information or learn more about you? Anything online? Do you sell any books or have anything that you want to recommend?
That's my problem. I got nothing to sell. I haven't written a book. I can do a little.
Do you have a website? I don't know. I mean,
No, I know. Thank you. Most people are like, now we're getting to the part where you get to promote. I just spread health. So I want to thank VeganLinked and Jeff in particular for having me on this channel. Appreciate the opportunity and wish you all the best of health. A couple additional resources. I mentioned pbnsg.org. I'm a part of the organization, and we, as a nonprofit, promote health and plant-based nutrition for all. Rochester Lifestyle Medicine is one of our colleague partners. I'm also the head of our IHA, that's my medical group's Center for Lifestyle Medicine, promote health for the patients we serve. We partner with Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, Dr. Ted Barnett's group, and they're a great resource for information. In addition, the PPOD, that's p-pod.org, organization prevents annual conferences, mostly for health professionals, but everyone's invited to either in-person or virtual conferences on the evidence-based approach to plant-based health and nutrition promotion. Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, a lot of great resources out there. Explore and find those that work best for you. And once again, I wish you all the best of health.